The most insulting, mind-boggling sports take of the entire year just dropped, and it has officially sent the entire football community into absolute meltdown. A major national outlet just released the ranking of the ultimate young players to build a franchise around, and where they placed our star quarterback is an absolute slap in the face to anyone who actually understands the game. We are talking about a generational talent who is being treated like an afterthought, and the justification behind it is so utterly brainless it will make your blood boil. Before we unpack this absolute circus of a list, do me a huge favor and smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and hit subscribe so you never miss another breakdown. How on earth do sports analysts still manage to get paid real money when they put out rankings that completely defy logic and common sense? It happens every single off-season, where someone tries so hard to be contrarian that they end up looking completely disconnected from reality. This latest piece of work set out to identify the true foundational cornerstones under the age of 29 to build an entire organization around heading into the future. That means the aging veterans are out of the equation, leaving a clean slate of young talent to evaluate. But instead of logic, we got an absolute comedy routine that insults the intelligence of every fan who watches tape. Our franchise savior, a guy who just put together an incredibly promising sophomore campaign, was somehow pushed all the way down to the 15th spot on this list. 15th. Are you completely losing your minds? To put that into perspective, he isn't even ranked in the top 10 young players across the league, and he is sitting behind 8 other quarterbacks in his own age bracket. It makes you wonder if these writers are actually watching the games or if they are just pulling names out of a hat to stir up controversy. Let's talk about the sheer positional value that makes this entire ranking look like a complete joke from the very first paragraph. Everyone who has ever touched a football knows that the quarterback position is the single most important job in all of professional sports. If you don't have a franchise signal caller, you have absolutely zero chance of winning a championship in the modern era. You can have the greatest defensive end in history or a pair of legendary offensive tackles, but if your quarterback is a liability, your ceiling is permanently capped. Just look at what happened to legendary defenders in places like Cleveland over the years, where all-time greats won absolutely nothing because the front office couldn't find a competent passer. Yet, this list wants us to believe that you should build an entire operation around a defensive end or a couple of offensive tackles before taking a young quarterback with an astronomical ceiling. Don't get me wrong, those guys are phenomenal football players, but a tackle cannot carry a franchise to a Super Bowl on his own. The disrespect only intensifies when you look at how they evaluated his peers from the exact same draft class. They put the top 2 other quarterbacks from that class at number 1 and number 2 on the entire list, creating a massive, inexplicable chasm between them and our guy. Look, if someone wants to argue that they prefer another young passer because of a specific scheme fit, that is fine, and I won't lose sleep over a minor difference in opinion. But a 13-spot gap between the top picks of that class is an absolute dynamic of pure insanity. This brings us to the ultimate controversy that needs to be addressed right now, which is why I have to ask you guys the absolute burning question of the day. Is this ranking proof that the national media is completely blind to our quarterback's elite ceiling, or are fans just looking at his development through rose-colored glasses? Go ahead and drop your honest thoughts in the comments section below right now, because I want to see a massive debate on this one. When you actually dig into the cold, hard numbers from this past season, the argument for ranking our quarterback this low completely disintegrates. We are supposed to judge these guys on their growth from year 1 to year 2, and the statistical reality heavily favors our guy over his peers. He threw for over 50 more yards per game than the player ranked 13 spots ahead of him. He carried a higher yards per attempt average, a significantly better touchdown-to-interception ratio, and a superior passer rating across the board. If you want to talk about efficiency, his air yards per attempt were half a yard better, and his sack rate was incredibly low, taking a sack on just 4% of his dropbacks compared to nearly 9% for his closest rival. More importantly, he has proven to be incredibly durable, starting every single game of his career while others have already missed significant time due to multiple injuries. To look at those metrics and conclude that he belongs at number 15 while his injured counterpart deserves to be number 2 is a total abandonment of logic. They even ranked another rookie quarterback from that same class ahead of him, which is just plain insulting at this point. What makes this entire situation even more hilarious is reading what the author actually wrote about our quarterback in the text of the article. The writer literally notes that the former top pick improved across the board as a sophomore under the tutelage of offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. He points out an extremely promising 27-7 touchdown-to-interception ratio. He praises his performance on deep passes, his execution on crucial third downs, and his ice-cold composure in the fourth quarter of one-score games. The article literally concludes by saying he is on track for a massive breakout third season at just 24 years old. How do you type out a glowing evaluation like that, acknowledging that a young quarterback is mastering the hardest position in sports, and then decide he is only the 15th best asset to build around? It honestly feels like the writer compiled a list of 15 players, realized at the very end that they completely forgot to include Caleb Williams, and just lazily slapped him at the bottom of the list without fixing the rest of the rankings. That is the only plausible explanation for an error this egregious. The reality is that actual football professionals see the world completely differently than these national writers looking for clicks. When you talk to real coaches, front office executives, and scouts around the league, they consistently rate our guy right around the top 10 quarterbacks in the entire NFL, regardless of age. If he is already a top 10 quarterback among veterans and superstars, how on earth is he the 15th best asset when you limit the pool to players under 29? The math simply does not compute. No serious general manager in the league would ever pass on a 24-year-old ascending quarterback with this kind of elite arm talent, and poised just to draft a wide receiver or a tackle to start a franchise from scratch. We are looking at a young player whose floor is already incredibly high, and whose ceiling is as massive as any quarterback in the league. He went through the necessary growing pains under center, adapted to a complex offense, and came out the other side as an incredibly efficient, dangerous passer who takes care of the football. The national media can keep trying to manufacture narratives and ranking him behind players who can't even stay on the field, but the tape doesn't lie. This level of disrespect is only going to serve as absolute fuel for a spectacular third season that will force every single critic to eat their words.